I've been making exploit videos for Baldur's Gate 3 since before the game even released. 2 years ago, back when the game was still in early access, I made this video, explaining how to cheese the Cambions aboard the Nautiloid. A year after that, I made a sequel video for the full release of the game. It was the same thing, explaining how to beat the Cambions aboard the Nautiloid, but this time with the new version of the Nautiloid. And over that year that BG3's full release has been out, I haven't had to make a single update to that video. Until now. Patch 7 just released and the developers finally removed my cheese strat from the game. Which brings us to today's video. Intro noises! I'm roseknight. And today I am here to show you how to cheese the Nautiloid. Using any class, on any difficulty including honor mode, all without using a single mod. And if you want to see the most optimized version of this exploit, wait till the end of the video, because it's insane how easy you can make this fight. Let's get started. First things first, here's what you will need for this trick to work. You will need 2 chests, 1 ranged attack that can deal damage from 30 feet away, and this guy. We're gonna call him Derek, and he is the reason this exploit thing works. Also, I'll say this right now, just so there aren't any misunderstandings. Literally any character creation choice will work, but there are character options that work better than others. In any case, the first thing you'll do is create a character, but once that's done, you'll begin here. You'll be able to immediately find the 2 chests you'll need in the starting room, here and here. Pick those up and move on to the next room, where you will find us, the Intellect Devourer. Ignore him for now, we'll get him later. For now, go recruit Lae'zel and fight through these 3 imps. And while you're in here, do not forget to loot all of the corpses here. Some of the loot is random, but you will always find these items no matter what. 2 axes, a scimitar, a short sword, and 2 light crossbows. Those will become important later. Okay, now that you've looted the dead, you can head up into the pod room, where you can recruit Shadowheart from her pod. But before that, you will see these 2 guys strapped down to whatever these things are. Well, let's just focus on this guy who's closer to Shadowheart's pod. We'll call him Francis. He's too dangerous to let live. Kill Francis now! The other one is Derek. Say hi to Derek, everyone. Also, don't kill Derek. He's important. You'll see why later. Now go ahead into this room. You'll find a corpse immediately to your right after walking in. It'll have a second scimitar for you. Take it. They're not using it anymore. Make your way further into this room. You'll see another corpse and it'll have a tablet on it. Grab it so you can free Shadowheart from the pod in the pod room. Now that you have all 3 party members, make your way all the way back to us and recruit him using Shadowheart or Lae'zel. Now that you have your entire party together, head back to the pod room, and without clicking any of these 3 buttons, unlink your tab from your party and leave them here, right next to the console. Now move Shadowheart and Lae'zel into this room right before the boss room. Swap back to your tab and press the middle button on the console. Derek should now wake up and you are in combat with him. Do not attack Derek. He is not your enemy. Instead, run from him. Run as fast as you can into this room here that had the dead thrall with the scimitar in it. Once Derek follows you in, he might punch you, but do not kill him, for he knows not what he does. Instead, dash out and place these 2 chests blocking the exit. And before you end your turn, move as far away from these chests as possible. Now, if you've done this correctly, on Derek's next turn, he should punch the chest. If he jumped over the chest, that means you were too close and his AI decided he could reach you with a jump. Don't worry, just lead him back into the room and try again. Even if he hits you, he can only do 1 damage at max. Also, this is why I gave us to Shadowheart. I didn't want us getting caught up in this combat with Tav. In any case, the setup for your Tav character is now complete. Go ahead and move your Tav over to the healing chamber and have them stealth over here for now. Swap over to the rest of your party, who should not be in combat with Derek at all. If they are in combat with him, that's fine. You can actually escape this combat by running back down here. Make sure you're sneaking when you do that, though. But once you're in this room outside of combat, place your characters in the room like this, with Shadowheart standing right next to the healing chamber, and the other two standing just outside the tunnel to the boss room. Now go into Shadowheart's spell list. On PC, you'll be able to do that by pressing I and clicking on this little book icon. From here, you can choose any of your known spells by the character you have selected. Now make sure that you have these two spells selected for Shadowheart, Bless and Command. As a recommended third spell, I would also select Cure Wounds, so you can heal the Mind Flayer if they get too low on health too soon. Otherwise, there are no other spells needed. Next up, go into your party inventory screen. It should look like this, with all 3 party members being shown. From here, if you haven't already, give Shadowheart both axes and give Lae'zel both scimitars, as well as one of the 2 light crossbows. This will maximize your damage potential in the upcoming fight. Using Shadowheart, I want you to cast Bless on herself, Lae'zel, and us. Then end Shadowheart's turn without moving her. Move Lae'zel and us to the boss room door without clicking on it, and end both of their turns. On the second round, use Shadowheart's action to activate the healing chamber to get her spell slot back. Then move Shadowheart as close to the door as possible. Afterward, use Lae'zel's Mage Hand ability to summon an extra character onto the field. I'm gonna be honest, it won't do much, but every little bit helps. And now, without ending Lae'zel's turn, enter the boss fight. Once the battle starts, you have 2 main goals. The first and most important one is to disarm Commander Zulk using the command spell. If you fail to do this, then you should have 1 more spell slot to try again. But if both attempts fail, just reload to a previous save, because there is no way to kill Commander Zulk and the Mind Flayer while he has the Everburn Blade. If you're in Honor mode and can't reload to a previous save, then you might as well start over from here if you are determined to use this glitch. In any case, once Zulk is disarmed, your next goal is to pick up these Nautiloid tanks. Hopefully you won't have to use them, but just in case, you'll have them as a last resort to deal a ton of damage to the Mind Flayer and Commander Zulk. Once you have the Nautiloid tanks and all the minor enemies on the battlefield are dead, you should surround Zulk and start wailing on him as best as you can. Keep attacking Commander Zulk until this timer hits 11, at which point Commander Zulk will call for reinforcements, all according to plan. Once that happens and it's one of your character's turns again, do not end their turn. Instead, swap over to your Tav character and walk them over to this spot here. End your Tav's turn to reset their movement speed. Now use their action to make a ranged attack against the Cambion.
Let's get this over with.
You'll notice that your character will move on their own to a certain spot before they take their first attack. That spot is your safety spot. If you move any closer than that spot you are currently standing in, you will be pulled into combat with the Cambions. So don't move any closer until the first Cambion is dead. If you chose a class that does not start with a ranged weapon or spell, then don't worry, since you have a light crossbow in your inventory that you picked up in the squid room. Equip that and fire away. If your accuracy is really low and you keep missing shot after shot, I would recommend turning on Karmic Dice. You'll be able to find that by following what I'm doing on screen right now. It's in the option menu right here. What Karmic Dice does is it makes your rolls less random. Basically, it sets a hard limit on how many times you're allowed to miss or hit in a row. Great for this exploit specifically, awful once you have decent stats and abilities. Now, even with Karmic Dice turned on, the Cambions will still take a while to kill, so be sure to put on one of my videos while you're slowly whittling away at his health bar. I recommend my Hollow Knight Pale Court mod video because I worked really hard on it and nobody watched it because the YouTube algorithm didn't show it to anybody. Please go watch that one, it's really good. But once the first Cambion is dead, you'll notice that you can now move a little bit closer to the boss room without getting dragged into the fight. Carefully make your way to these steps. You should be standing on the second step on the side furthest away from the Cambion. That'd be your left if you're looking into the Cambion room. Now this is where things get a little bit tricky since this wall is slightly in the way of shooting him. God, why does murder have to be so difficult? To make things easier, I'd recommend going into the top-down view by pressing the O key on your keyboard for PC players. From here, you can aim your attack at the Cambion, but pay close attention to your Tav character as you do. If you see your Tav character moving too close, like say past these steps, then do not fire yet. because you'll be dragged into combat with the Cambions. And once both Cambions are dead, you can finally kill Derek, who has been punching a chest for the past 20 minutes. And once he's dead, don't forget to go back to this healing chamber so you can get back any spell slots that you may have used. Once you're ready to join the fight against Commander Zulk, be sure to select the jump action, so you can jump right on top of your first dead Cambion and loot him as soon as your turn starts without wasting any of your movement. From here, what I like to do is loot all of the corpses in the room using my Tav character, while the rest of the party beats up Zulk with the Mind Flayer. Once Zulk and the Mind Flayer are taken care of, you'll have gotten the level up prompt from the game, although you won't be able to actually level up until you leave the ship. But before you leave the ship, I just want to point out that there are a few caustic bulbs and void bulbs lying around the boss room. Here, here, and here. Be sure to grab those if you have the time to do it. And by the end of it all, here is what my inventory looks like. As you can see, I have a ton of amazing loot. I'm level 2, about halfway to level 3, and I'm way better equipped for the early game than I would have been otherwise. And yeah, this is the entire exploit from start to finish. Literally anybody can do this, but if you have any questions on how it works, leave a comment and I'll try my best to help you through it. But for everybody else, let's optimize the hell out of this and completely destroy Commander Zulk in honor mode. Let's talk about the best and worst weapons and classes for this exploit. But before all that, let's talk about this video's small creator shoutout. For the uninitiated, I do shoutouts of small creators every edited video. As a small creator myself, I know how hard it is to find your audience, and I want to do whatever I can to help wherever I can. That's why this video goes out to Quantum Bucket. Quantum Bucket is an amazing gaming channel that's been killing it with their Helldivers 2 content. He's currently at 800 subscribers, and I need you to go fix that injustice. Seriously, just look at this clip and tell me that this isn't worthy of at least 1 million subscribers.
Oh, keep it moving. Cluster bomb that way.
Alright.
Hopefully I didn't. Oh, I did stick one. I did stick one. I did. Run!
Welcome to the world of Helldivers 2, where every player, willingly or not, participates in a single galactic-scale meta campaign. An unscripted liberation-earned story unfolding every time anyone decides to dive. In other words, everything is canon.
We got pushed by the brass. Resupply never came. Resupply never came.
I've been a video editor for 4 years now. Maybe 5, I don't know. I'm old, both for my own channel and as a freelance editor. If you can't tell just by looking at this, let me give you my professional opinion. These guys are really good at making videos. They're really, really good at being entertaining. And they are really, really, really okay at Helldivers 2. Go to their channel once you're done with my video and watch all their stuff. For the sake of the algorithm, leave likes and comments on their videos, and be sure to tell them that Roseknight sent you. Links to the channel in the description below, and you'll find one of my personal favorite videos of theirs linked at the end of this video. And if you have anyone you want me to shout out in a future video, head on over to my Discord. Post their info in the small creator shoutout section. I'll check them out, and if I like what I see, I'll shout them out in a future video. But with all that being said, on with the show. Let's talk about the absolute best choice you can have for this exploit. The fighter. If you choose to be a fighter with the ranged fighting style, that would give you the highest possible chance to hit with a light crossbow, at 36%, dealing a whopping 1d8 piercing damage that all Cambions are resistant to. Hold on a second. Yeah, no. I'm sorry, did I say absolute best? I meant the best of the worst. It's true that fighters are the best choice for the crossbow, but the crossbow is the worst choice for a weapon, compared to any cantrip, since for some reason my firebolt spell has a 40% chance to hit. I don't know why it's better, it should be worse. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense, but whatever, moving on. The number one best cantrip to use for this exploit is the Eldritch Blast. No other class can get the Eldritch Blast cantrip at level 1 other than a Warlock. The reason Eldritch Blast is so good is because it uses one of the few damage types that aren't resisted by Cambions. And on top of that, it deals a full D10 of damage that can crit if you're lucky. Also, as a side note, great news for anybody that wants to play as a Great Old One Warlock, the glitch that used to force you into combat with the Cambions whenever you crit with that specific subclass is gone, so go nuts with it. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then check out the comment section of the old exploit video. It's all explained there, but yeah, Great Old One Warlocks are good now. But moving on to the second best cantrip and the last cantrip I'll talk about, Bone Chill. It's arguably better than Eldritch Blast, since it doesn't have a line of attack. It just hits if you're in range and the enemy is visible, which means there is a 0% chance you actually move too close to get dragged into combat, since the line of fire doesn't get interrupted by this wall. The only real downside that drops it lower than Eldritch Blast is that it deals a d8 instead of dealing a d10 of damage. Lastly, for damage at least, I want to talk about level 1 spell attacks, or at least the ones that stand above the rest. Magic Missile and Witch Bolt. Magic Missile is great, because each casting of the spell allows you to deal 3d4 plus 3 damage, with no chance of it missing, and 0 resistance from the Cambions. Meanwhile, Witch Bolt is arguably even better, since if you do hit, it gives you a guaranteed 10 full turns dealing 1d12 lightning damage every single round. That being said, Witch Bolt does have 2 massive downsides to it. Cambions are resistant to lightning, which means they'll take half damage, and there's a large chance that you miss the initial spell attack and not get any guaranteed damage afterward. To mitigate that second downside, spend a round stealthing first before you attack, that way you give yourself advantage on the attempt. Now, I have one more thing I want to talk about before we break this fight. Let's talk about classes, because not every class is made equally. Now, you might think that the best class to choose for this is the Warlock, since I said that they have the best cantrip. Well, you're wrong about that, and honestly, I have no idea where you get these crazy assumptions from. No, the best class by a landslide would have to be the Wizard class. And here's why. If you choose the Wizard class, you can also choose these 6 specific spells. The first one is Long Strider. It increases your movement speed by 10 feet for some of us, 3 meters for everybody else, and it lasts until you take a long rest. For the record, Healing Chambers replenish all of your healing and your spell slots, but they don't count as long rests. So, Long Strider is essentially permanent until you leave the Nautiloid. Second spell, Mage Armor, increases any creature's armor class to 13 plus the dexterity modifier, as long as they are not already wearing armor. This also lasts until you take a long rest. Summon Familiar lets you summon a small animal ally into your party permanently, and can be resummoned if it dies. The only downside is this spell doesn't work until after you recruit Lae'zel for some reason. So if you're noticing that you can't cast it, just go recruit Lae'zel, then you'll be able to cast it. Spells 4 and 5. Magic Missile and Witch Bolt. Both spells are amazing for this exploit, as I've already explained. And lastly, the Mage Hand cantrip. Summon a weak ally for 10 turns. Again, it doesn't do much, but it'll help. With these 6 spells, you can make this entire fight an absolute joke, pun intended. And just to prove it to you, I'm gonna make a Wizard Tav, give them all of these spells, and beat all 4 bosses in honor mode. Let's do this. Skipping ahead a little, after I recruited us and made it back to the pod room, I summoned a Crow Familiar, I cast Long Strider on my Tav and the rest of my party, then I cast Mage Armor on my Tav, my Crow, and us. I used the Healing Chamber to get all of my spell slots back, and moved everyone into this room before the boss room. From here, I went into turn-based mode and swapped to Shadowheart so I could cast Bless on Lae'zel, us, and the Crow. I used my Tav to cast Mage Hand and ran as far out of the room as I could to go press the middle button. While that was happening, I entered the boss chamber with everybody else. I started by immediately flying my Crow into position to blind Zulk on my first turn, and I got him on my first try. Every time he's blinded, everyone else gets advantage on their next melee attack for the round. So always, always, always use your Crow as soon as possible in combat. You'll hit Zulk way more often than normal and completely dominate the fight, just like I did. Once these 2 extra Cambions were dead, I was able to recharge my spell slots and head into battle to destroy Commander Zulk with some can't-miss magic missiles. He never stood a chance. Both Zulk and the Mind Flayer were dead with 7 rounds left on my timer. That's more than enough time for me to wander around the boss room, gathering all the loot I could possibly want. And with all of that, there's just one last thing I would like to leave as a message for Larian Studios. Thank you so much for making this awesome game, but I hope you've realized while watching that I will not stop trying to break it. So just do me a favor and leave this one exploit in. It's not hurting anyone. All it does is allow the player to have a little bit of a head start in the early game. And it shows us that any challenge you throw at us is able to be overcome and conquered, even if it's not how you intended for us to play. I think that's what makes this game so great. It's based off of Dungeons and Dragons, a game that's famous for its players going off the rails and doing unexpected things. And let's be honest, if you make a patch for this exploit, I will find another way. So it'll be a lot less work for both of us if you just left this one alone, but I don't think you're ever gonna stop patching out my exploits. So let me just leave you with this, Larian. So long for now, and thank you for all the views. And thank you all so much for watching to the end. I genuinely hoped you enjoyed this, found it useful, or found it entertaining in some way. Sorry it was so nitty-gritty on the details, but if you saw the comment section on my last exploit video, you'd see why I needed to be as detailed as possible for this one. If you want to be notified whenever I make a video or go live, then join my Discord. It is the best way to be notified whenever I'm doing anything. I am currently making plans to create a Twitch channel, maybe in the future, I'm not really sure yet. Let me know in the comments below if you'd be interested in that. It'll honestly have a massive impact on whether I do or not. If you want to and are able to support me in the things that I make here, then please, please, please become a channel member. It would mean the world to me. Speaking of, let me give a massive thanks and shout out to our current channel members, Miranda Lentz and Ratty Beats, for continuing to support this channel. Thank you all so much. You give me hope that I will be able to do this professionally one day. I really hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, outro noises.